Good day and welcome, Songo here with another video, this time talking about philosophy instead of gameplay, which also has a bit of philosophy depending on how you look at it, but that's beside the point. This time we are discussing, do humans operate like computers, as proposed by Immanuel Kant, and hosted by Wisecrack in these 8-Bit Philosophy series. Before we start, I want to say that I believe 8-Bit Philosophy is likely their interpretation of Immanuel Kant put into a game context of some sort, in this case Contra, and may or may not actually represent the views or opinions of Wisecrack, and it may or may not actually represent the views and opinions of Immanuel Kant. I really don't know. I don't research them all that much. I don't know them very well. I am just going to make my cases based on the arguments presented in this video, and not based on what they may or may not believe, such as the ad hominem. Anyway, so how we're going to do this is I'm going to let the arguments scroll over, and then I'll pause the video, and then discuss the arguments and my take on it.
Does a human being operate differently than a computer?
Well, one's silicon and electricity, the other's chemicals and electricity, and carbon, so yeah, operates kind of differently, but will.
If I'm aware of how a computer is programmed, I can predict how it will respond to input, and therefore I can control it.
This actually depends on the algorithm specifically that you are working with, because there are some algorithms, such as the random algorithm, literally called random, in Java, just because, which produces a random input or output unless you seed the algorithm. So in some algorithms you can control exactly what's going to come out of the algorithm, because the algorithm was likely designed to be reliable, and so if you put in X, it will put out Y. That's because that's the most useful type of algorithm. But there are algorithms out there where you cannot control it quite as well. You can control it within a certain range, but not entirely. Okay, so moving on.
What if science could quantify our brains and reduce them to incredibly complex algorithms? Could human behavior then also be predicted? And if so, are we responsible for our actions? Immanuel Kant.
So, this is a question of free will, and does it even matter? If we don't have free will, can we be judged for our actions because we don't have the will to not do those actions or whatever? Well, regardless of if you've got free will or not, you're still doing that action. If this action is killing people, then people will probably say, yeah, we don't want you killing us, so stop, because self-preservation is a pretty strong motivator to get people into action. But, so, in my opinion, free will does not matter at all, regardless of if it exists or not, because you're still doing a thing regardless. Okay, moving on. Please stop the recording. That's an embarrassment. But anyway.
Kant addressed this problem of determinism in his book The Critique of Practical Reason, which is about as dry as it sounds. Kant says that humans, like all else in the physical world, are subject to cause and effect. For example, if I'm ill, I will want to be healthy.
Unless the cost of being healthy is greater than the benefit of being healthy. For instance, if the cost of being healthy was sacrificing your family to an old god, then, okay, many people would choose that the cost of being healthy is a little bit higher than the benefit of being healthy. But that's just some people. Anyway, moving on.
Or, if I have low health, I can't help but want a health pack. However, human beings have the ability to will, and this willpower is free.
Can you prove that humans have will? That any of that exists? So, you can't? Oh well, it's a philosophical concept anyway.
Even though I'm at low health, I can deny the desire to refill it.
Well, you can have a computer deny the desire to fill it as well, whether for logical or random reasons, or illogical reasons. So, yeah, you can literally have a variable called desire to heal, and if that is less than X, then you do not heal. This could be impacted by a huge variety of variables. For instance, what if you need this heal later? Or what if you want the challenge of not being healed? Or what if you're prideful? And you can have all those variables there for X or for... So, anyway, moving on.
If we weren't free, we wouldn't be able to deny our inclinations through what Kant calls the moral law. So, let's assume there are two players. Player 1 has over half health, and player 2 has almost none. Even though player 1 wants a health pack, he believes it is his duty to give it to player 2.
Okay, so, again, this duty can be incorporated into the equation of, do I want to take the health pack or not? Because, well, let's say this computer was designed to optimize the efficiency of the health pack. And so, in that case, in a very simple case, player 1 would only gain 1 health from that, while player 2 gains 4 health. Clearly, the computer will give player 2 the health pack. Now, what if the two players attacked each other after the health pack was achieved? For whatever reason. And for simplicity's sake, say they both attack at the same time, and they attack at one damage per attack. So, in that case, it would give it to player 1, because once he takes the health pack, and player 2 only has 1 health left, they would both attack each other, and player 2 falls down, netting a 0 loss of life. Or health points. Actually, a 1 loss of health points, because player 2 lost 1. So, yeah, I was right the first time. And then, how do you determine if the player 2 is going to be aggressive? And what if player 1 decides to run while the player 2 decides to be aggressive? And so on, and so on, and so on, and so on. And you can incorporate this into a algorithm. It may take a while to calculate, and by that point, so the other person probably would have decided, yeah, I'm just gonna take this and kill you, but that's beyond the scope of this. So, moving on.
Unlike computers, human beings know what they ought to do. Thus, his famous aphorism, ought implies can.
Okay, so, you ought to walk when you have no legs. Oh, that means you can walk without legs? Ah, okay. Okay, I'll stop being sarcastic. This ought is just a part of a logical decision-making. Some people weigh this ought higher than others. Let's look at Crash Course Economics for an example.
Let's go to the thought bubble.
One of the most popular experiments in behavioral economics is called the ultimatum game. In this experiment, 2 players decide how to share a specific sum of money, let's say $100. The first player is given all the money and then is asked to propose a way of splitting it with the second player. Now, if the second player accepts the deal, both players get to keep the money. But if the second player refuses, nobody gets to keep the money. When the first player offers to split the money 50-50, the second player almost always accepts. But what happens when the first player offers an unequal split, like 80-20? Would you accept that offer? Well, it turns out the less equal offers are often rejected. Now that doesn't seem surprising, but it directly contradicts classical economic theory. It's irrational. The rational choice would be for the second player to accept any offer, even if it's only $1. I mean, after all, $1 is better than nothing. But human behavior is not motivated solely by gain. It's also shaped by complex ideas like fairness, injustice, and even revenge.
So, this discusses that even if it's, quote, irrational, it is logical. It is driven by a desire for fairness and, yeah. This can be inputted into an equation as well, if you have a sufficiently complex algorithm.
So, if you recognize an obligation, then you are implicitly free to do it or not to do it. If humans were pure calculation like computers, there would be no sense of ought. We would just do.
How do you know that there would be no sense of want, or ought, if humans were like computers? I mean, you can set a variable called ought into a variable, or into an equation in a program, and there, you've got ought. You're a computer, you've got ought.
Now, there are many philosophers who scoff at the idea that humans can transcend cause and effect. Some say we have no freedom whatsoever. But, as science progresses, only time will tell where the line lies between man and machine.
And you probably know my position on this, as I probably just told you, like, for 5 minutes or so. But I'd like to see what you think, and where I was wrong. And so, leave it a comment about how and why I was wrong. And subscribe. Like, and comment, yes. Anyway, have fun. Bye.